Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun and exciting video for you guys today because we're going to be taking one last look at Paprium. I've done 3 videos in the past talking about how this game disappeared with basically $1 million of Kickstarter money, not delivering any of the ports to anyone who paid for them, and even the original Sega Genesis cartridge, how most people that pre-ordered and gave Watermelon money got absolutely nothing in return. Weirdly, I was one of the few people that actually received their copies, and you guys have been interested in hearing the entire Paprium saga. It's definitely seeming like a complete scam at this point in time, but the game is real. And I ran a review on Paprium saying that I found it decent, nothing special, nothing bad, kinda just felt like it was trying to do everything all at once, not really succeeding at any of those tasks. And pretty much everyone in the comments said I should go the lower route because it is the more fun route in the game, and you guys wanted to see some more Paprium and hear more about the story, so I figured that's what we would do today. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. Now again, in the previous review when I talked about separating the art from the artist, I am not going to let any of Watermelon's actions color my opinion of going the lower route in the game. I'm going to tell you whether or not it's good and whether or not you'd be interested in playing it, leaving everything else on the table as far as the entire $1 million being missing is concerned. And I would say at least it does have more than one elevator that qualifies it as a proper beat 'em up in my opinion, because it's not a beat 'em up game if there is not an elevator. Although weirdly this elevator has like 30 seconds in a row where no enemies drop down. I'm not sure if it's a programming error just giving you a little bit of a breather, but this elevator takes about 3 minutes to get to the bottom, and you're only really playing about 1.5 minutes of game while you're doing it, which is in and of itself a strange thing. And I would say the lower route definitely has a completely different vibe than the upper route, but in some instances I actually found some glitches that stopped me from being able to continue. That's definitely something you do not want in your game, and even though I was able to get past the glitch by restarting my Sega Genesis and trying again, I lost about 10 minutes to the capture, and that definitely bummed me out because I just wanted to play the game. Now, I do appreciate that there's different vibes in Paprium depending on if you go high, low, or middle as far as the routes are concerned. Going lower into the city, obviously you hit the slums or the high rises or where the nice areas of the city reside, and that definitely is a nice touch as far as the game design is concerned. The artwork down here, every bit as good as up top, but it definitely gets a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more dingy, and it shows. But I would say, having played this lower route now, there's something about it. I understand that everyone was telling me it was the better route of the two. It's definitely more challenging route of the two because I found the upper route to be completely easy and almost a free win. But the developers at Watermelon just decided you had to fight every single enemy the game had to offer, and you had to fight them over and over and over again. I know this lower route can take over an hour, but honestly, it could have been trimmed down into a concise 35 minutes. This is one of those situations where less is more, but the developers thought more was more. You'll be on a screen a minute, 2 minutes, just kind of hanging out, beating the same enemy over and over again until things change up. And I totally get they were trying to go with the graphics here, but honestly, some of the effects down here just really don't hit. And I thought at first maybe it's just because I was capturing this with my RetroTink 4K and watching on an LCD monitor, because this fog effect here just feels like all the colors got completely washed out. So I went ahead and took the SCART cable out of the RetroTink 4K and popped it into my PVM, and honestly it didn't look great there either. I almost felt like it was almost a visual glitch, because interestingly all the life bar information at the top left hand corner gets a little bit subdued as well as far as the colorways are concerned and overall vibrancy. But you see there, those neon hairs just basically flash through the screen. So I understand what they were going with here, but it kind of just feels washed out, and I feel like the effect isn't that great. But I do love when this train picks us up. This is maybe one of the best areas of the game in my opinion, at least graphically, or maybe it's a bus. I haven't been able to figure that out quite yet. It's got a good vibe, it's got some good combat, but unfortunately this is where a glitch occurred that basically prevented me from making any progress on this route until I restarted the entire console. But this route definitely has a very staccato motion to it. You're either fighting 8-10 enemies at once on a screen hanging out for like 2-3 minutes, or you're basically beating 2 enemies on a screen that you'd actually like to see more of before the game moves on. Now the glitch here is that Rondo, the boss, it didn't matter how many times I wailed on him. I had 3 lives as well as 2 pills to power up. I fought him for basically 2.5 minutes and the life bar never once went down. So I basically gave up, restarted my Sega Genesis, picked a different character, went in, and Rondo was dead within like 35 seconds. So something in the game's programmer logic broke and was just not allowing me to put any damage into the boss. But I will say, even though this game feels unfinished from a technical standpoint, the music in this area excels just like it did up top. So it's your first soundtrack sample. 45 seconds, I'll be back with a lot more Paprium. If there's one thing I can definitely say about Paprium is the music from start to finish I absolutely love. It might not be your cup of tea, but it is very accomplished and it does fit the overall vibe and theming. And down here in the lower areas, the vibe is just complete dilapidation. These are not the areas of the city that you want to hang out in. They are gross. They are supposed to be gross. And that's the interesting thing about Paprium. Outside of the fact that $1 million are missing and they haven't updated any of their backers on Kickstarter outside of a 2-sentence update when I ran my first scam video, it's one of those things. The game just should have been more fun. They spent so much time on the colorways, on the music, on the concepts, on all the little Easter eggs and touches in the level. It looks absolutely gorgeous when you're just looking at the game, but unfortunately when you're playing the game, it just kind of hits in that low mid tier. There's so many enemies down here and they just basically stack up over and over again, and you have to fight the same couple sprites like 15, 20, 30 times in a level. Well, I will say this boss right here, whatever it is, seems kind of like a giant land crab mixed with some sort of catfish. That is a fun look. The enemy design is good, the bosses are good, but just like the upper route, the bosses again almost feel free. You just basically wail away on him, take a couple pills and keep popping off shots, and you can basically get a stun lock on all of the bosses. It's not like it really takes any quote-unquote strategy, because I didn't look up a guide to be able to do this. I just kind of went in, played it like it was a beat 'em up, and I was able to beat a ton of the bosses without really ever having taken a hit. And that's something I want a decent amount of challenge out of a game, but not too much. And the lower route definitely adds the challenge, but it's just because you get mobbed by enemies. But one of my favorite Easter eggs in the game, I'm not going to tell you where it's from. I want you to listen and you tell me if you know where this burning enemy sound effect is. It is a very famous 90 game, so go ahead and listen. It's only going to take about 3 seconds, but really think about it. I feel like a lot of people are going to know this right off the top, so here it comes. You may have to listen back a few times because it is a little quiet compared to all the sound effects, but it's from a famous 90s first-person shooter. That's the hint I'll give you. And I do love the hilariousness in this game. That dude in the background is just swinging that thing like he has no cares in the world. And that's probably because he doesn't. And this area has a particularly good track on the soundtrack as well, so it's going to be the second soundtrack sample. Go ahead and listen for 35 seconds or so, but come back because I still have a lot more levels to show you and a lot more review of Paprium to do. But enjoy! I think the reason I love that track in particular is because if it isn't inspired and basically slightly copying Streets of Rage, I don't know what it's doing, but inspiration is totally fine. If you hear something in there, it's not like the musicians basically copy and pasted something. They took something and made it their own. And that is something that happens all the time in music, and I'm definitely not faulting that. And this may be my favorite boss arena right here, just this pit fight with all of these different concrete stanchions and barbed wire fencing around the ring. Very easy bosses, just basically wail away on them, and it's a free victory, but I do like the look. And I do love the fact that we get into the drug factory as well underground, and if you just basically hit those sacks, you're going to power up yourself without having to take any of the pills you find throughout the game. But here is where the lower route, in my opinion, absolutely becomes a slog, and the game stops being fun to play. You are just going to get so many enemies that are basically hit sponges. They're going to be to the left and right of you. Definitely feels like an area designed specifically for a 2-player experience, because you're just going to have to hit them over and over again, and even if you play the game well, you're just going to take a little bit of that chip damage and end up running out of life just because there's so many different enemies around you. Although I do like a rideable forklift that you can attack enemies with, but the animations seem to be completely missing frames. It's almost like you just teleport around, like the developers and artists were working on this sprite, but they ended up shipping the game before it was done. And that, in a lot of ways, is what Paprium ends up feeling like again to me. I know people are curious about the game and want to see more footage and hear more about how Fonzie disappeared with $1 million, and we can talk about that. But honestly, you really didn't miss out on much if you didn't get this game, in my opinion. Sure, I want everyone who ordered a copy to get exactly what they paid for, because I hate the idea of anyone just getting ripped off, but it's not like this is the most incredible game in the world and you're just not playing it. And I would say this boss fight here, absolutely mechanically annoying. Electra, you're just not quite sure where to hit, everything is flashing, and it kind of feels like when you're actually doing damage, you're just getting lucky, because the enemy just jumps around all the time. There's 4 different versions of it on screen, and you kind of have to just basically get good at guessing which one you'd actually hit. Now as we move into the Indian Underground Mafia, this area has a very distinct visual language, and I absolutely love it, but this is even worse than the previous area, and just in the fact that it's going to stack up so many opponents against you. It just feels like they were trying to make this game artificially longer, and they decided, we don't have time to make more backgrounds and more areas, so let's just throw 15 to 20 enemies per screen, and when you move forward about maybe 8 inches of screen real estate, and then we're going to do it all over again. But again, a very distinctive soundtrack, and this music I love down here. So it's our third and final soundtrack sample. We'll do 35 seconds this time, and I'll come back and show you how the game ends. More fun music, and I like the reverb and bass there, and I love that in the stories it seems like there's just a nuclear rod from a nuclear reactor hanging out, and you do get different colors depending on what part of the screen you're on. There is a shading up top that basically makes it look like there's a light source just at the bottom of the screen, so it is a convincing effect. But again, this area and the lower levels just basically stop being fun. It is a great time to see the new sprites and to beat up on them, but honestly, this is just committing a cardinal sin in the rules of beat 'em ups as far as I'm concerned. You just took too long and made me fight too many enemies without seeing anything new, and I kind of grew tired of the game, because honestly, I just want a 35-minute concise start to finish beat 'em up that has everything I want and nothing else. And I get Paprium is a bigger game, that was always by design, but honestly, a lot of the bigness of this game, for lack of a better term, just kind of feels like it's coming through with sheer repetition. And as far as how this area ends, I do not know. I ended up dying down here. I hit continue, and I was basically like 2 levels back, and I just could not be bothered to continue to finish the game. And that is not a good sign when this kind of felt like work, and once I had to continue, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm really not that interested in actually jumping back in. And even though there is a save system, and I saved and popped back in, it put me even further back than when I died and continued. So I was just basically thinking to myself, I have seen enough of this area. I was trying to spam kick the enemies in the corner just to get past them, but honestly, once I died, I really wasn't interested in actually taking another tour of it. But there is still a couple paths in this game I haven't shown yet or unlocked, so if you really do enjoy these, leave me a comment down below, and maybe I'll go through some of the rest of the game and find something more that I like compared to this route. But everyone commented and said I had to go the lower route to get the good game of Paprium, and honestly, I found it the complete opposite, but that's totally cool. We all get our opinions. If you want to see the other routes, leave me a comment down below, but I wish they'd spent that $1 million on a little bit more game design. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.